Chapter 6: The Gift of Generosity. Generosity is a state of heart. A generous heart is doubly blessed in the sense that it bestows goodwill on both the receiver and the giver. The gift of generosity is the best antidote to the inveterate human tendencies of acquisitiveness and resultant greed. It is motivated by a deep conviction that it is noble to give and to share. It flows directly from the gift of gratitude. When we reflect on our life and recount what we have and what we have been given, we realize how the generosity of our parents, relatives, teachers, friends, neighbors, and society at large has empowered and enriched our life. Our heart wells up with untold gratitude at the very thought of it, and we feel inspired to return the favor. Through the gift of generosity, we get to share our abundance with others as a direct expression of our gratitude. Quite simply, the gift of generosity signifies giving more than we get. For the more we give, the more we grow in fulfillment. It is not necessary to have a lot to spare in order to practice generosity. As pointed out earlier, it is more a condition of the heart that wants to share, regardless of one's means or ability to give. More often than not, those who have less to spare are observed to be more keen to share. It is all about the sheer joy of giving. The following story splendidly illustrates this condition. The joy of giving joy to others. Two men, both seriously ill, occupied the same hospital room. One man was allowed to sit up in his bed for an hour each afternoon to help drain the fluid from his lungs. His bed was next to the room's only window. The other man had to spend all his time flat on his back. The men talked for hours on end. They spoke of their wives and families, their homes, their jobs, their involvement in the military service, and where they had been on vacation. Every afternoon, when the man in the bed by the window could sit up, he would pass the time by describing to his roommate all the things he could see outside the window. The man in the other bed began to live for those 1 hour periods where his world would be broadened and enlivened by all the activity and color of the world outside. The window overlooked a park with a lovely lake. Ducks and swans played on the water while children sailed their model boats. Young lovers walked arm in arm amidst flowers of every color, and a fine view of the city skyline could be seen in the distance. As the man by the window described all this in exquisite detail, the man on the other side of the room would close his eyes and imagine the picturesque scene. One warm afternoon, the man by the window described a parade passing by. Although the other man couldn't hear the band, he could see it in his mind's eye as the gentleman by the window portrayed it with descriptive words. Days and weeks passed. One morning, the day nurse arrived to bring water for their baths, only to find the lifeless body of the man by the window, who had died peacefully in his sleep. She was saddened and called the hospital attendants to take the body away. As soon as it seemed appropriate, the other man asked if he could be moved next to the window. The nurse was happy to make the switch, and after making sure he was comfortable, she left him alone. Slowly, painfully, he propped himself up on one elbow to take his first look at the real world outside. He strained to slowly turn to look out the window beside the bed. It faced a blank wall. The man asked the nurse what could have compelled his deceased roommate, who had described such wonderful things outside the window. The nurse responded that the man was blind and could not even see the wall. Perhaps, she said, he just wanted to encourage you. Cultivating an abundance mentality. When we learn to give, we develop the mindset of having more than enough. We move away from scarcity mentality of I don't have enough to the abundance mentality of I have enough to share. This may include giving a smile, helping an elderly person, giving your time for a noble cause, giving affection and encouragement, being patient, giving forgiveness, sharing your knowledge freely, helping someone in financial need, or just listening and understanding. We begin to feel that we are giving from an infinite reservoir of abundance. Realizing that we have more than enough gives us the freedom to share what we have and to live a life full of meaning and authenticity. When we live authentically, we feel better connected to the life around us. We walk radiating the joy of abundance. We discover that the more we give, the richer and happier we become. Mutual maintenance of the universe. The gift of generosity springs from a high sense of sharing. That is, sharing our gifts, time, expertise, and blessings. At the very face of it, this may seem counterintuitive. One may ask, why should I share my fortune that I have worked so hard to acquire? Peripherally, it may seem that existence is so designed that we come wired with self-interest and self-reference. We like to work hard for our self-preservation and self-propagation. In just about every interaction, the underlying question is always, what is in it for me? The suggestion to share may seem at first to run counter to our precious self-interest. However, if we look around carefully, we find that on a cosmic scale, everything exists for something else. The sun and the moon, the wind and the air, the plants and the trees, the birds and the animals exist to serve a larger purpose beyond their own limited sphere of existence. The universe seems to be set up on the principle of mutual sharing and collaboration among all its participants. Gurdjieff, a Russian mystic, used to call it the principle of mutual maintenance of the universe. Thus, according to this understanding, contributing our rightful share as human beings would seem to be the logical thing to do. And yet, the gift of generosity does not always come naturally to all of us. It has to be consciously formulated, conscientiously cultivated, and concertedly practiced. Generosity and the wisdom traditions of the world. Many wisdom traditions suggest that one should give away a certain portion of one's income regularly to those less fortunate and those in need. Some traditions even specify that their adherents contribute a certain percentage, let's say 5 to 10%, of their respective income to charities and or religious institutions of their preference. Though it may seem a bit prescriptive to most modern minds, it does show a high degree of awareness on the part of spiritual traditions about the importance of the need to share for the proper functioning of human communities. It also indicates a deeper understanding about human nature. In their greater wisdom, such spiritual traditions realize the importance of practicing generosity, as a sure remedy for addressing societal disparities and inequities. After all, when left to its own resources, the need for self-preservation may not leave much room for concern for the preservation of the greater common good. Therefore, it really is better to give than to receive. In Buddhism, for example, generosity is recommended as an antidote to the self-inflicted mental poison of greed. Wanting and hoarding more than what we have or need are seen to be the twin maladies responsible for much of humanity's ills. Greed is both the cause and effect of self-centeredness that manifests in tendencies such as hoarding, self-indulge, and deceitfulness. It ultimately leads to undue attachment to things that are inherently fleeting and time-bound. So, by developing a generous heart, we not only overcome the inveterate greed, but also reduce our attachment to transient things. Being less self-centered, we become more open, caring, and compassionate toward others. A generous heart also leads to contentment through discovering joy by bringing joy to others. Again, we have to check the purity of our motivation. We should not give to seek acceptance, admiration, recognition, power, or even gratitude. Secondly, it is the need of the recipient that should determine the choice of recipient, rather than considerations such as religion, nationality, or ethnicity. In other words, we should base our decision purely dictated by the privation and not the credentials of the recipient. We should learn to give out of the sheer joy of giving, and because we believe we have more than enough to share. Only a life guided by generosity and compassion is a life worth living. 3 types of generosity. The Buddha speaks of 3 kinds of generosity or giving. First, stingy giving, which is giving something you were going to throw out anyhow. Second, ordinary giving, which is giving something of value but still expecting a return of some kind. Third, kingly giving, which is giving what is most precious to you with no expectation of any kind in return, no favors or any particular response. It is just something that is given in a completely open-handed way. As stated above, giving can happen in many ways, including sharing of material goods and money. It can also involve giving our time for a noble cause, sharing our expertise with people in need, or serving a charitable organization. The key again is pure motivation. It is not what we give that matters, it is how we give. The best antidote to greed. Unquestionably, greed is a constant factor in human affairs, irrespective of what we have, as illustrated in the following folktale. Aladdin's Talking Lamp. A story is told of a person who possessed the like of an Aladdin's lamp. This lamp granted every wish of its owner. After a while, the owner got kind of bored with the lamp. Someone told him that there was another person in the town who had an even better lamp. This lamp doubled the wish of its owner. After searching for this luckier owner of the lamp, the man inquired if the owner of the doubling lamp would like to make an exchange. To the surprise of the first owner, the owner of the lamp that promised double wishes agreed to an exchange. Now, the first owner hurried back to his home to test his new lamp. He closed all the doors and put the lamp on its pedestal, ready to make a wish. "Give me a large, beautiful house," commanded the owner. "Why not 2?" replied the lamp. The man said, "Give me a sports car." The lamp replied, "Why not 2?" After a few more similar tries, the owner discovered, to his dismay, that it was only a talking lamp, programmed to reply, "Why not 2?" to every request that you would make. But it was too late. The owner of the talking lamp had already left town. So much for greed. Greed runs rampant in modern society, causing glaring inequities and untold exploitation. The modern capitalistic lifestyle seems to thrive on 3 maxims. First, the next thing we buy will satisfy us. Second, you can never be too rich. Third, he who dies with the most toys wins. Adam Smith, 1723 to 1790, the author of the classic Wealth of Nations, is often recognized for his celebrated invisible hand expression, which he used to demonstrate how overall the pursuit of self-interest in a free market ensures society's best interest. However, many believe that a more nuanced understanding of Smith's idea would be that an unfettered pursuit of self-interest and capitalistic greed do not always promote society's best interests. As a matter of fact, Adam Smith anticipated this in his earlier work, Theory of Moral Sentiments, in which he counseled that we must become the impartial spectators of our own character and conduct. Can we then legislate greed? Well, we can't. It is far better to rely on the deep springs of human wisdom to keep one's head than to count on the not-so-reliable invisible hand. After all, the grand invisible hand can also use some help from all of us. Buddhist psychology recognizes that the way we normally live, our mind is stained by 3 unwholesome psychological states, the 3 poisons: greed, hatred, and delusion. Buddhism believes that the cause for the endless competition, conflict, injustice, and oppression does not lie outside the mind. These are all just manifestations of intentions, outcroppings of thoughts driven by greed, by hatred, by delusion. The goal of the Buddhist approach to life is to eliminate these unwholesome states by transforming them into their wholesome counterparts: greed into generosity, hatred into loving kindness, and delusion into wisdom. Generosity boosts happiness. There is tremendous happiness in making others happy, despite our own situations. Research in positive psychology reveals that lasting happiness comes from making others happy. A life devoted to making only one's own wishes come true makes very small, insignificant package. According to the findings of positive psychology, giving boosts happiness. Generosity, it seems, brings more happiness than selfish indulgence. Giving just a few dollars or a few minutes to someone else may help you live longer, happier, and healthier. Life science staff writer Gianna Briner reported on this research. Statistical analysis revealed personal spending had no link with a person's happiness, while spending on others and charity was significantly related to a boost in happiness. The alchemy of giving seems to work like this. When we share something with others, the joy of sharing takes our attention away from our preoccupation with little worries and petty annoyances. Too much self-focus and self-brooding can lead to constriction of spirit. Often, the best way to transcend our worries is to help others overcome their worries. A young man once approached a Zen master with this question: "I feel very discouraged. What should I do?" The Zen master replied, "Encourage others who are discouraged." When we share with others words of hope and encouragement, they also uplift our spirits. It has been rightly said that shared grief is half the sorrow, but happiness when shared is redoubled. Cultivating generosity. Points to ponder. First, personally speaking, what do you think makes for deep gratification? Achieving your own goals or helping others to reach their goals? Second, can you think of a situation or an event in which your main focus was to help others without expecting anything in return? How did you feel having gone through it? Third, recall a situation where you were solely motivated by your own gratification. How long did the euphoria of self-satisfaction last? I'll give you a hint. You may discover that the joy of helping others lasts much longer than self-indulgence. Smile, the most beautiful human gift. It is said that we use 33 facial muscles when we frown and only 13 facial muscles when we smile. Why waste extra muscular effort frowning? When life gives you 100 reasons to cry, show life that you have 1,000 reasons to smile. Perhaps the most beautiful thing in human interactions is to see a person smiling. And even more beautiful is knowing that you are the reason behind it. In the coming week, give a smile to everyone you meet. Whether it is the homeless person asking for some change, the hurried driver who cuts you off on the freeway, the police officer writing you a ticket, the customer who is complaining about the service, the cashier at the grocery store who mistakenly charged you twice for an item, or the stranger who scared you by making a face at you. Then just watch the magic wrought by it. Hidden benefits of giving. Although true giving is an altruistic act at best, there are natural benefits that accrue from practicing selfless generosity. For one, we become free from our self-constrictive motives and open up to the world of mutuality and interdependence. We see our life as a collaborative flow of impersonally interlinked experiences. In this flow of life, there are no unrewarded acts of random kindness. When we see others as an expression and extension of our own self, paradoxically, we discover every true act of giving brings back manifold blessings in its wake. And since, in the final reckoning, there are no others, we find life unexpectedly rewarding us with seemingly random windfalls and surprise bonanzas. The following story illustrates beautifully how a generous act done many decades before can bear an unexpected boon at the right moment. What goes around comes around. A young 18-year-old student was struggling to pay his fees. He was an orphan, and not knowing where to turn for money, he came up with a bright idea. A friend and he decided to host a musical concert on campus to raise money for their education. They reached out to the great pianist Ignacy J. Paderewski. His manager demanded a guaranteed fee of $2,000 for the piano recital. A deal was struck, and the boys began to work to make the concert a success. The big day arrived. Paderewski performed at Stanford, but unfortunately, the boys had not managed to sell enough tickets. The total collection was only $1,600. Disappointed, they went to Paderewski and explained their plight. They gave him the entire $1,600 plus a check for the balance $400. They promised to honor the check as soon as possible. "No," said Paderewski. "This is not acceptable." He tore up the check, returned the $1,600 and told the two boys, "Here's the $1,600. Please deduct whatever expenses you have incurred. Keep the money you need for your fees and just give me whatever is left." The boys were surprised and thanked him profusely. It was a small act of kindness, but it clearly marked out Paderewski as a great human being. Why should he help two people he did not even know? We all come across situations like these in our lives, and most of us only think, if I help them, what would happen to me? The truly great people think, if I don't help them, what will happen to them? They don't do it expecting something in return. They do it because they feel it's the right thing to do. Paderewski later went on to become the Prime Minister of Poland. He was a great leader, but unfortunately, when the World War began, Poland was ravaged. There were over 1.5 million people starving in his country and no money to feed them. Paderewski did not know where else to turn, so he reached out to the US Food and Relief Administration for help. At the head, there was a man called Herbert Hoover, who later went on to become the US President. Hoover agreed to help and quickly shipped tons of food grains to feed the starving Polish people. A calamity was averted. Paderewski was relieved. He decided to go meet Hoover and personally thank him. When Paderewski began to thank Hoover for his noble gesture, Hoover quickly interjected and said, "You shouldn't be thanking me, Mr. Prime Minister. You may not remember this, but several years ago, you helped 2 young students go through college in the US. I was one of them." This is a true story that had happened in 1892 at Stanford University. Its moral will always be relevant because it illustrates the wisdom of generosity and caring for others. This story also reveals an important aspect of the operation of law of karma. What goes around comes around. Abiding in the wisdom of generosity. At a deeper level, the wisdom of generosity is about freeing oneself from the cocoon of I, my, me, and mine. It is about freeing oneself from the unending servitude of greed and self-centeredness in one's quest for lasting happiness. It is about understanding that no matter how much money, power, or fame I may be able to amass for myself, it is never going to be enough because there is always going to be something more that my mind will crave to acquire. Besides, all human structures are essentially impermanent and hence ultimately unfulfilling. But if I come out of the self-imposed limitation of I servitude and move toward we orientation, I may unexpectedly discover abiding joy and fulfillment. Robert Louis Stevenson, 1850 to 1894. The Scottish novelist, poet, and essayist beautifully conveys the essence of generosity as follows. To be rich in admiration and free from envy, to rejoice greatly in the good of others, to love with such generosity of heart that your love is still a dear possession in absence or unkindness. These are the gifts which money cannot buy. The following story captures the heart of the matter by conveying the wisdom of generosity, preciousness within and preciousness without. A wise woman who was traveling in the mountains found a precious stone in a stream. The next day, she met another traveler who was hungry, and the wise woman opened her bag to share her food. The hungry traveler saw the precious stone and asked the woman to give it to him. She did so without hesitation. The traveler left, rejoicing his good fortune. He knew the stone was worth enough to give him security for a lifetime. But a few days later, he came back to return the stone to the wise woman. "I've been thinking," he said. "I know how valuable the stone is, but I give it back in the hope that you can give me something even more precious. Give me what you have within you that enabled you to give me the stone." This is a wonderful story with multiple layers of deep meaning. It tells us that the wise woman had something in her, a deeper understanding that enabled her to part with what was considered precious in the worldly sense. At best, the message is symbolic. Unless we have something precious inside us, we are not able to share precious things outwardly. The story also portrays that the wisdom of the wise lies in understanding the impermanence and precariousness of human valuables and structures. We are told that we cannot take anything with us, but we can certainly leave something behind. Only a life guided by a wise mind and a generous heart is a life capable of leaving something worthwhile behind. When the Buddha was asked to describe the hallmarks of an awakened person, he simply said, "Cool mind and a warm heart." By cultivating a cool mind and a warm heart, we may discover a genuine way to pass on our gifts to others. The following short poem by English evangelist John Wesley truly conveys the essence of the art and science of generosity. Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can. Concluding remarks. There seems to be a striking similarity between the findings of positive psychology and Buddhist psychology on this essential point. The road to lasting happiness is paved by a selfless, caring concern for others. It is cultivated by harnessing our intrinsic goodness, by developing the spiritual qualities of mind and heart, qualities of kindness and compassion, generosity, gratitude, and altruism. It has been observed that if we cannot change the course of the winds, we can always adjust our sails. A Buddhist perspective on pure motivation, gratitude, and generosity is not only in harmony with the findings of positive psychology and wisdom traditions on this subject, it also seems to present the most compelling case for adjusting our sails.